The most successful people that I aspired to be like were the most organized and seemed to do the least amount of work. The Rolex watch, the Porsche, the Mercedes-Benz, the 20,000 square foot home, that stuff's just hard to get. People would say knowledge is power. Well, knowledge is only power if it's organized in an effective way to get you to that next level. Otherwise, you're just great at trivial pursuit. That just because you believe something doesn't mean it's necessarily true.
Jerry.
Yes, sir.
We live in an era where everyone have access to books, podcasts, or whatever material they want to find over internet.
Right.
People are still stuck. Either they are not finding their way out, or maybe not thinking enough outside their plate.
Right.
Why is that? We know exactly what we need to do, a better job, but we don't do it.
I think in today's world, we can get overwhelmed because there's so many shiny objects out there. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you're looking at something, you go, oh, this is great. And then something else grabs your attention. So I think that's part of the problem. But again, what you suggested for somebody 30, 40 years ago, the resources and tools they had at that point would have been so much better than somebody maybe a decade before them. So it's more of a mindset as opposed to the tools and resources that we have. I think it's a matter of looking at each thing that we do have access to and not getting overwhelmed with what it is we have in front of us, and don't get caught up in this thing, which I call the tyranny of how I'm going to do it, as opposed to focusing on why I should do it.
There's a concept about signal versus noise.
Right.
I think that's the same thing. Focusing on valuable insights versus things built around it.
Right.
Right. How should we do it? How should we evaluate those things?
I think when you say signal versus noise, I think noise is that stuff that happens to us throughout the course of the day, that it comes from so many different, stimuli and stuff around us that it's hard to sort of like isolate it or kind of discern and saying, do I need to listen to this or do I not listen to this? With respect to signal, if somebody has a focus on what they want to do or who it is they want to become, they look at these certain things that come into their life as maybe a cue or a trigger to focus on, saying, look, maybe that's something that can help me, as opposed to something that's just this arbitrary noise that's trying to keep my focus off the goal, if that makes sense.
A lot of people think the answer to being stuck is just working harder or hustling, basically. But you say being stuck has nothing to do with effort. I want to know what is the actual thing, or what is the actual aspect or their mindset that's holding people back from moving forward.
That's a great question. I think for a lot of people, and I lived this for so long, thinking that the more I did, the more things I stuck my toe into, the more successful I'd become. And it wasn't till years after I had this philosophy that I realized that the most successful people that I aspired to be like were the most organized and seemed to do the least amount of work. It's just that they kept themselves focused on the 20% as opposed to the 80% of stuff that was just basically taking up time. And it gets back to one of the things that I talk to people about identity, that a lot of people think strategies alone will make us successful. That if I just got a new strategy and something new, I'm going to become successful. And strategies alone will not do that for you, because if that were the case, we'd all be healthy, wealthy, and wise, meaning that we all know what we need to do to become healthy, right? It's not a big secret. If you eat better, move more, you're going to become healthier. If you want to become wealthy, if you save 10% of your income over 20, 30 years of your life, you'll become financially independent. So those strategies and techniques aren't reserved just for the few. We all have access to that stuff.
Sure.
So other things have to take place for us to actually take advantage of those strategies. And I talk in depth about this. And one of the things is what is the story we're telling ourselves? Do we even believe that we're capable of doing these things? And so before we can even try a new strategy in our life, we have to analyze who it is we are as a person, understanding our identity, and whether or not we even believe that we can do these things. And so before the strategies even come into play. Now, I'm a strategist by trade, so to speak. I believe that strategies are so important, but I think for most people, they think all I need is a new book or I need a new training class. And when I do that, that's the magic pill. The fix takes place. And what happens with most people, they feel good after taking a course or reading a book or listening to a podcast, but then 3 or 4 days later, they're back to their same habits. So the key is that before we can even enact this new strategy in our life, we have to start thinking about the things that are holding us back, who it is we want to become or who it is we are at this point here, and deal with those issues first before we can even start using the proper strategies.
You mentioned about learning something from books or whatever, podcast or whatever that would be. Taking that, following it for a few days, and then people fall it back to their older. How do we maintain discipline around it so that we go with the same, better strategy for a longer period?
That's a great question. And so this kind of gets into the meat of the whole issue, which took me literally decades to understand. Like I said, one of my things I always believed is that if you worked hard, you learned as much as possible. People would say knowledge is power. Well, knowledge is only power if it's organized in an effective way to get you to that next level. Otherwise, you're just great at Trivial Pursuit. You know what I mean? And so one of the things I found, if I can say it like this, is when we're all born, in the first 7 years of our life, our operating system gets installed, the 1.0 version. And at that point there, most people just basically stay at that version for the rest of their lives. And all their goals, dreams, their morality, their fears, their limiting beliefs are all based on that initial operating system, based on the environment around them that we get conditioned to or programmed with. And so going forward in our life, we use those experiences to make the decisions in our lives going forward. To put it in real practical terms, we've all bought a computer and we've used that computer, and say you want to install a new program to become more efficient or effective. You've had this probably happen, that you try to install it and a little box pops up and says, you need to upgrade your computer to the latest version before this new program will work, right?
Yes.
We in our own lives though, we don't get that little pop-up box. These new strategies and tools that we can use to get better won't work because they can't install into our original operating system, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So I tell people all the time that this 1.0 version of who you are isn't, it's not hardwired. It can be changed. And so I thought who I was as a person, probably till in my 30s, I thought I was hardwired. That how I thought, what I believed was who I was born as. It wasn't till in my 30s I realized that no, what I believe about things is nothing more than a conditioned response or a conditioned program that was installed with me early on in my life. I started realizing about thoughts is that I don't have to believe them. I can actually remove them and install new thoughts in my life. Who I want to become as a person, take myself to that next level, I could actually become that person. You know, when you look at other people and said, I aspire to be like them. Why are they that way? Maybe everybody says, well, they're born that way. They're just naturals, right? And that's what I believed, and most people believe throughout their entire lives. I came to believe through a lot of mentorship and, you know, a lot of personal development myself that, no, the people we see that we aspire to be, they are a creation. They created themselves, made them this. And we as individuals, we have the opportunity to take that 1.0 version and upgrade it so when we want a new strategy or something to take place, that little box won't pop up. And we do it all the time. We get a telephone. It doesn't matter if you're whatever version of phone or product of phone you own. The very first thing you get when you turn on that phone, you know what it always says? Let's check for updates.
Yes.
And then every 3 or 4 months, I have an iPhone. I have a new iOS that comes out. I have to upgrade that phone. And the reason why, it allows me to get the best possible optimization out of that phone. And it allows me to upgrade new programs that I want to put in it or new apps, right? And some of the newer apps won't work with the older versions, right?
Sure.
But we as human beings, we try to go through our entire 70, 80, 90 years of life with that original version. So there's no, it makes perfect sense why we have a hard time competing or excelling in this new world, because we're operating on an old, outdated system, a version of ourselves, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Down the line, you mentioned that you were able to remove those grassrooted thoughts for probably your 30 years of life. How do you actually get rid of it? I mean, you have been living with those thoughts or with those habits for a very long period of your life.
Yes.
Changing something, installing something new. How? Isn't that challenging? Isn't that
very challenging? It's very challenging, but it can be done.
It can be
and
done.
It can be done a lot quicker than we think.
Okay.
Like I tell people this, when somebody wants to change, that change will not happen completely overnight because for many of us, it took years to get to that point in our life. But we can start seeing changes immediately in our life. And so the key that we want to do when we want to go through this change, it all starts with a simple word. And I tell all my students this and all the corporate trainings people that I work with, I said it starts with a word called awareness. Once you're aware of what's going on in your life, then you can actually start addressing the particular issues. In my course, the 0 to 100 Mindset Experience, one of the very first things I do with people is I say, look, let's take a look at your belief system. Let's take a belief inventory. What do you believe? And I give a series of questions. What do you believe about your appearance? What do you believe about your level of intelligence? What do you believe about your money management skills? All these things. And so I will let them get very raw with themselves and say, look, okay, here's how I feel about my intellect. Here's what I feel about my creativity. And what you're going to find when you start listing this thing is that a lot of this stuff isn't even true, these limiting beliefs. It's based on the conditioned environment that we grew up with. Maybe a school teacher said something to you, or maybe your parents weren't all that supportive and they said something to you. So what we do is we have the awareness, we start looking at the key beliefs that have held us back to begin with. And when we look at that, we say, all right, let's challenge it now. Let's look at this belief that's been holding us back and say, is it true even? Is it even true? You know, what evidence is out there to say that I'm not capable of doing this? So it's kind of like you sweep the legs. If you got a table like this here, there's 4 legs. Keeps this table very secure. Well, if your belief, your limiting belief is basically solidified by these certain beliefs that you have in your life, if you start analyzing them and say, well, my school teacher says I wasn't very smart. Well, is that even true? That was based on maybe the day they were having. So I can sweep that leg so I can weaken that belief. Now, this is a pretty in-depth process, but I want people to understand that just because you believe something doesn't mean it's necessarily true. So the key is to start transforming and start building this new belief system we have in our life. We got to analyze what we truly firstly believe, really hold its feet to the fire and says, is it true anyways? And what I found is 99 times out of 100, these things that are holding most people back, these beliefs, aren't even true to begin with, especially when we analyze them. But if you don't analyze them and you don't itemize them, they will continue to dominate how you feel about certain things as they arise in your life.
I think that is the aspect of the entire conversation needs to be rethink by a lot of people. Having those grassrooted thoughts and challenging those things.
Yes.
People are usually afraid of someone disrupting those thoughts or those.
And if I could just further a little bit on that.
Yes.
Once we address an issue or a limiting belief, then we have to come up with a more empowering one that we can replace it with. Like people will say, I need to overcome something. Well, if a limiting belief isn't an actual thing, so you really can't overcome that. What you have to focus on is creating something that is more empowering than that, to take its power away. So one of the things I did believe growing up, and I tell people this, is that I ended up coming to Western here, going to university, getting a degree. But when I was in grade 5 and grade 6, I was in remedial reading because I was a very slow reader. So I believed, in the way some people teased me because I was in remedial reading, that I wasn't that smart. So for the longest time, I believed I wasn't very smart. The issue is that how I took information was differently than most other people did. So I had to, when I got to university, I had to change that way of thinking. I had changed it later years in high school, but I had to start believing it says, no, I can compete with everybody else here. I'm an intelligent person. And so I started working on it at that point there. But had I believed what everybody had said to me back in grade 5 and grade 6, who knows where, the road I would have went off. So again, that was deeply rooted in something that wasn't even true. Now, my school teacher at the time didn't say that about me. That person was very encouraging, was actually one of the most influential people in my life. But the people around me, because they saw me sitting in a different group, they would call me dumb or slow or something like that. And as a result of that, had I believed that, my life would have taken a totally different approach. It wasn't until later in life I realized that, no, they were wrong. It was just I did things a little bit differently.
You have a powerful statement. You will never outperform your self-image.
Right.
Break that down for us.
Again, it got back to the point where I would think that if I could learn more, I got better than a lot of people in certain things, that I'd automatically become successful. Well, I kept falling flat in my face. That wasn't the key, because I looked at people around me who maybe weren't learning as much as me, doing much, and they were excelling past. And I had a very good mentor of mine. He's no longer with us. And we were driving to Atlanta. We were going to a conference. And I love this man dearly. And he said, somebody taught me something a long time ago. He said, you cannot outperform your self-image. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, who you believe you are will limit you to what you're capable of doing. Because we all would love to be very successful. We'd all love to earn a lot of money. We'd all love to be presidents of the company. Why aren't we all? Because who we think we are will determine how far you go. And it was that expression that you never rise to the occasion, you fall to your standards. And he said, so no matter how bad you want something, if you don't internally believe that you're capable of it or even worthy of it, he said, you just won't do this. So he says, so what you have to do to get to that next level in your life, you have to take a deep look inside of yourself and say, who are you? Who it is you aspire to be? And what do you need to believe and do so that you can get to that level? So I tell people that all the time, is that you can never outperform your self-image. And who you are today, what got you to where you are today, will not get you to that next level. So you have to take a look and say, all right, that next version of who I want to be, how would that person see things? What would they think about on a daily basis? And what do I need to learn so that I can do that? While at the same time, address maybe the limiting beliefs that have held me back from doing that in the first place. I know it seems confusing, but it's really not, because it's a matter of you having that awareness every day saying, this is where I want to go. This is who I need to become. And these are the barriers that are holding me back at this point in my life. So how do I confront those? And what do I need to learn to take myself to that next level?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I was reading a book lately. It's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Okay, yes.
Not sure if you read it, but it's the same thing. It's saying the same thing. And there's a playbook around it with the barriers, with the goal that you want to achieve, and how you can make your way. Or there's an example of himself, a couple of examples. Well, I'll take an example as he wants to marry someone. He literally wrote 40 pages in a book that how that girl should be.
Right.
And then he wrote another book, a personal journal book, that what it takes for him to become that person so that that girl
would be attracted to him.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the same.
Oh, that's exactly it. And when you start having expectations and requirements of the world around you, the people around you, you're just going to be sadly disappointed every day in your life.
Yes.
So instead of focusing on trying to make them come to you, you become the attraction that they would want to bring into their life.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I was held back for a very long time. Attracting something is basically just manifesting it.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking for a very long time. But I never thought this way, that I need to become that person so that the amount of wealth would come to me naturally.
Yes.
Rather than me just...
Well, that's it. And in our marketplaces is I tell people all the time, I said, the ability to provide more value to the marketplace will determine your value in the marketplace, not as a human being.
Absolutely.
Because we all have incredible value as a human being. But your value in the marketplace has nothing to do with your intellect, your education, your finances, or anything. It has everything to do with the value you bring. And the more value you bring to the marketplace, the more valuable you become, the more other people will notice you and want to bring you into their life because they see the value you can provide.
How can we improve this workflow? If there is any better way, or any things that you may have come across, or maybe something that works for you?
I can only go on based on what's worked for me. For the longest time, I always would get theoretical and say, I read this strategy. I never used it, but somebody said, this is how you do it. For me, it's very simple. In order for me to accomplish anything worthwhile in my life, it always starts with me getting myself into a peak high energy state. And I never understood this for years. I always thought it was all mental. And believe me, a lot of it is. But another part of it is about getting my body, the physiology of my body, into a peak high energy state. Because certain things happen in our body when we get excited and we're, the endorphins release, our dopamine levels go up, our cortisol levels go down, all these kinds of things. So for me to get myself into a good flow, to tell myself a good story about myself, and to believe this so that I could take advantage of the strategies every day before I start my day, so to speak, I spend at least 10, 15 minutes getting myself into a peak high energy state. I do it by moving my body in certain ways to generate a lot of energy. I get very vocal. I have certain declarations that I make about myself. I look into a mirror. So for me to get the flow going, I have to get myself into a peak high energy state. There's a variety of different ways you can do it, but I call it priming. And I have to get my body, it's like anything. You see in athletes when they go out on the ice.
Yes.
They're priming their body. They're getting themselves prepared, not only physically, but they're getting themselves into a mental state of life. And I always tell people this, is that if you and I were to sit here right now, slouch our shoulders, bend over, lower our volumes and stuff like that, within a couple minutes, we'll have the most boring conversation in the world. But if we're moving our bodies and we're kind of excited about what we're doing, and we're already in this peak high energy state, you can feel that energy.
Yes.
And so to me, it all starts with the physical side of things. And then everything else just naturally takes place. And during the day, if I have a bad call or I have something that turns out not the way I want it, and I get bummed out like we all do on a daily basis, right? I could stay in that state and it could deteriorate my day even more. Or after my 5-minute pity party, I can actually get myself back in a high peak energy state, which will get me back on track towards the goal I want to do. And I always tell people this, I said, the happiest people are the people who are making progress on a daily basis. Absolutely. If you're on a hamster wheel and you're doing the same thing over and over again with really no end in sight, it's a pretty monotonous, uninspiring day. But if you're making progress every day, and it doesn't matter how long you do it, but if you, at the end of every day, say, I made a little bit more progress, I'm maybe 1% better than I was yesterday, we feel a lot better.
Sure.
But it all starts, I find for me, what's worked for me is that I always get myself into this peak high energy state. And people will say to me, are you always fired up like this? And I say, no, I'm not. You can ask my wife. Last week, I deal with chronic back issues. I had sciatic issues and a lot of pain. And a couple days last week, I couldn't get out of bed. I was crawling. I was at 4 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep. So the last 4 or 5 days, I've been sleeping upright downstairs in our living room in a chair because I can't lay down because the pain's excruciating. And so I'm not always like that. I mean, it was in an incredible amount of pain. But once I could get my body moving, I realized, I said, look, I could let this hamper my days and I could take a week off and not do anything. We have Growth Day London coming up. I have corporate training appointments coming up, things I got to prepare. So in the morning, with all the energy I had, I would put a lot of heat in a shower on my back. I would get myself into that peak high energy state. And a funny thing happens is that when you get into that peak high energy state, a lot of that pain and discomfort that I've been focusing on, guess what happened to it? Started going away. I don't know if the pain went away, but I wasn't focusing on it. I focused on my plan. So so I tell people, no, I'm not already like this. It's on purpose. I take a lot of time and put a lot of time and effort in getting myself in a position so that I can perform at my highest optimum level.
My obvious question is, how do you plan your day, or how do you start your day? You mentioned you bring yourself into high peak energy.
Yes.
What else do you do?
Before I go to bed each day, if you look at my desk at home, I have 3 things that I have to accomplish the next day.
Okay.
I write them out the day before, and I have a pretty good idea of what I need to do. And so when I get up in the morning, I get myself into that high level and stuff like that. And then another thing is I never look at my phone first thing in the morning. It's over on my desk. It's plugged in. It's charging. I can honestly say that I don't even look at my phone or my emails for at least an hour, hour and a half into the morning. Most people I don't think will say that. I just don't, because I don't want something to take me off my game right away. So I like black tea in the morning. So I get up, I deal with the issues that I have to do, stuff like that. I have a shower, I get myself together. I go downstairs, I get my black tea, I come up, sit down. I get myself for 10, 15 minutes into this high mental state. Then at that point there, I'll check my emails, because I have a consulting business on the side that things could happen early on that I might have to address. So that's when I deal with my emails and my stuff at that point there. And then what I will do is I post on a regular basis content that can help people, maybe change certain parts of their life. I will do this. And then I get my list out of the 3 things I want to do. I take the hardest thing first. It's called eat the frog first.
Yes.
I take the most important thing first, and I focus on that. And then I focus on the next thing, and then I focus on the next thing. And these could take me until 10 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's my focus. That's the 20% of the things that are going to contribute to 80% of my cash flow, my livelihood, or the growth of my business. So those things are the things that I focus on first. All the other stuff is the fringe stuff that I would like to get done. But if I don't get it done, oh well, I'll move it off to another day. I will tell you this, for years ago, I would focus on the fringe stuff because that was the easy stuff to do and kind of the fun things to do, right? So that's kind of how I do is I pre-plan the day before the things that I need to get done. When I get up, I have a very stringent thing that I don't want to get my thinking off on the wrong path right away. So I don't look at my phone, don't look at my emails, don't do any of that stuff. Then I do my priming, and then, so that's how it is. And it's been that way, basically for the last 5 or 6 years. And I found that it's allowed me to accomplish so much more in the last 5 or 6 years from total projects and things that I'm involved with than I had the previous 25, 30 years of my life.
As we were talking about books, what books do you recommend for people?
I think the very first book that anybody wants to read is, do you mind if I grab these here?
Absolutely.
2 of them in particular. This was in 1990. I had a mentor when I graduated and got into business. And he gave me this book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. The first 100 pages of this book alone completely reshaped how I saw the world. And I saw opportunity. Because it made me realize at that point there that if I take the time to understand my mind, I can control my mind. I can manipulate what I think about. Because 2 people from the same environment, same upbringing, same social economic background, whatever, one of them can become incredibly successful, the other one maybe doesn't. And it has nothing to do with the environment. It has everything to do with what's going there. That book helped address that for me. And then the second one, and I think, one of the keys to success, most important things, is our ability to get along with other people. If you can get along with other people and build like and trust, this book here, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, is the greatest book in the world that's ever been written on how you and I both can win at the same time. So many times we think that if you were to win, someone else had to lose. Talks about never criticize, condemn, or complain, the 3 C's, because nobody wants to be around people who criticize, condemn, and complain. But that book teaches us how to build community with other people. And community stands for nothing more than having this common unity with one another. Yes. And so those 2 books, there's so many other ones I've read over the course of my life, but those 2 books there, I say they're a must. And the crazy thing about this book here is you can go online and even Think and Grow Rich, and there's PDF versions of it out there, so many free. And you can go onto YouTube and actually listen to the whole audiobook over 7 hours.
Yes.
So the information's out there. And this is, again, it's getting back to all this stuff's out there. Yet I talk to so many people and they've never heard of this stuff. It's out there. You just have to have that willingness or wanting, that desire to get better.
What's the weirdest book have you ever read?
Well, I think it's the one is the Forgotten Principles of Reality. The Abandoned Principles of Reality by Alan Flake, because they'll take you down a totally different rabbit hole and about reality. But I enjoy stuff like that. You just have to be in a position where you have the ability to discern.
Yes.
And that's it. But yeah, I like a lot of different things. Another book that I've read that's very, very powerful is The Go-Giver by John David Mann and Bob Burg. Incredible book. It's based on the premise that Zig Ziglar said years ago, that if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want in your life.
Yes.
And so it's an incredibly powerful book. It's called The Go-Giver. There's the Go-Giver series, but it's a very powerful book. I love it.
Yes. That's the same theme of the International Women's Day this year.
Right.
Give and gain.
Yep.
Before the academy, before the mission.
Yeah.
Take us back. What were you trying to build? What felt apart?
Yeah.
And how did you come up with that?
Well, I tell you, when I graduated from university in 1989, I knew this. I didn't want to be an employee because I'm a terrible employee. I always envisioned being in business for myself. And the word entrepreneur, although I didn't know what it meant, I thought it sounded pretty cool. So I always wanted to be in business for myself. So I did. I got out into the financial services industry, was a 100% commissioned salesperson, and fell flat in my face, where I could have got a real job and made money right away. I struggled early on in that. But at the time, I felt like I was failing or I was a failure, not realizing that the lessons I learned during that process and the people that it forced me to talk to and learn from made all the difference in the world for me. So I ended up having success with that and enjoyed it immensely for 20, 25 years, the financial services industry. But a funny thing is that it allowed me to get married, have a family, my wife and I, buy a home, and have a good quality of life. But one thing happened in the 2000s, mid 2000s and early 2010s. I realized that even though I was good at it, I didn't like it. I wasn't passionate about it. I really never could say I loved this industry. It provided for me at the time what I wanted, but I just never loved it. And I said, it was frustrating that I didn't like the compliance. I didn't like that selling aspect of it. And so I started looking for something different at that point there in my life. It solved a lot of problems for me. But I realized at that point there, as I was, in my 40s, that I was going to spend the rest of my life searching, even if I don't find, but at least searching for that thing that I could get up every day in my life and feel passionate about and want to do. So it allowed me to try a bunch of different things. Some of them are still going today. Some of the things I discounted. But I will tell you this, at the time they may have felt like a failure and I may have lost some money or whatever on that venture. But looking back, they all had these incredible learning moments for me. They had these opportunities for me to learn a new skill, or most importantly, put me in circles where I was able to meet some new people that could bring incredible, immense value back into my life.
Did that cost you anything beyond money?
At the time, yeah. It cost me time. I was thinking, oh man, did I just waste a couple years on this? Or man, what did I do? Or it cost me a lot of, embarrassment or whatever it was. But I look back now at it now and say, no, it's one of those things where you never start over. You start over with experience this time. And it took me a long time to really realize that. It's that if you're seriously trying to do something and trying to get better on a daily basis, if you were great at it, you'd be great at it. But everything you've done for the very first time in your life, you're brutal at it, right?
Sure.
I was too. And so I can look back now, and here's the thing too, is that we all got to get real with this, is that people say, oh, this person here really stuck it to me in my life. They're an awful person, and I only hope the worst for them and all this kind of crap. But this person, they were unbelievable, and I give all my, all the kudos to them. Here's what I realized. I couldn't pick and choose. Who I am today is a result of all those experiences. So if I'm going to take credit for what I've done and be thankful for the people that have come into my life, I also have to be thankful to a certain degree for all those bad things that happened. Because
Sure.
had those experiences not happened to me, they wouldn't have shaped my temperament, my beliefs, my morality, or whatever it is because of that. So I'm now at the point, no matter what's happened in my life, I don't have to like certain things that happened to me, but I can be grateful that those things happened because they certainly taught me something.
Absolutely.
You know, maybe didn't bring me any value at the time, but they certainly taught me a very important lesson that maybe I won't put myself in that situation again.
There's the same way I look at the situations.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful when you think this way.
Yes.
And you can, as you mentioned, you cannot like something in the past, but you can be always grateful
Oh, absolutely.
for the people you met through that. Absolutely. Was there any side hustle or experiment along the way when you were growing up,
Yeah.
when you were in the school, or when you were thinking of starting something on your own,
Yeah.
that taught you the most or gave you the most amount of money?
Yeah. The one thing that taught me the most about what I was capable of, in 2014, when I basically got out of the financial services industry, got rid of my licenses and everything, I had this really crazy idea that I wanted to get involved in the professional racing industry. Because I have a background racing motocross bikes when I was younger and that. And I was a
Interesting.
gearhead. My dad had a used car lot and was a mechanic. And, you know, when I was a kid, we'd grow up, we'd go to the Saturday or the Sunday afternoon races and stuff like that. So I was always, enthusiastic of racing. So in 2014, I said, I want to get involved in the racing industry. And my wife was thinking, oh my gosh, is he going to buy a race car? And it wasn't that. But I said, somehow I just wanted to get involved with it because I liked it. So I started this business. One of the things I always had an interest was the designs of race cars and all this kind of stuff. And so I had a program on my thing that I could, and I had a 3D modeling program that I could actually design race cars. So what I did is I read this book on social media at the time as how to build a business using social media. And
Okay.
it just basically said, essentially what I did is I recreated race cars that other drivers were professional race cars, NASCAR and IndyCar and all that were using out there. And there was these online games. And so I would recreate these cards so kids could race these things online. And kids were downloading them. I had a website and all this kind of stuff, and they were downloading it. And then when I would post the car online, I would attach my name to the race car driver. And slowly but surely, they would click on that and say, hey, that's really cool, all this kind of stuff. So I was going, okay, so they're starting to know who I am. And then a couple of them started reaching out to me and saying, hey, would you be able to do a design for me for the upcoming season? So I started, was appealing to their egos and stuff. And so I started doing it. So for 2 years, I was designing the race cars for all these a bunch of professional race car drivers, some of them well-known internationally, because they just love this stuff. And so, a long story short, I started getting a few of them as clients. And and then not only was I doing this, I was helping them design their haulers. As you go down the highway, you see the truck and all the designs on the path, helping them design all their apparel and stuff. And then was putting programs together so that they could actually send them to prospective sponsors for the upcoming season and stuff like this. And so this was 2014. And in 2018, at the kickoff for the NASCAR Pinty Series in Bowmanville, over 50% of the cars in the field were clients of mine.
Wow.
In 4 years. And so, and then, that continues to grow, that business. That's one of my businesses still to this day. But during this time now, in the last 10 years or so, that the work I've done for these teams and the proposals I put together has raised almost $20 million in sponsorship for these race teams.
Wow.
What that taught me was, number one, I was incredibly passionate about it. And all of them loved it. They said, we just love your detail. And so what it taught me is that if you love something and you're passionate about something, you'll do it. And you'll spend hours. And here's the crazy part about it. And this is what most people won't do. For the first 24 months, do you know how much money I made doing this?
No.
Not a penny. Didn't make a penny. I front loaded it. I built an awareness of who I was so that people would call me and say, man, you're so good at this. I'll say, here's the thing you don't understand. There's 10,000 other people better doing what I do right now. But the one thing they didn't do, they didn't market themselves as an authority in this industry because they wanted to get paid right up front. And so now I have professional race teams still. That's still one of my businesses I have. Still reach out on a regular basis to help them in the area of acquiring sponsorship and stuff like that. And what that taught me was that if you put your passion first, you give other people what they need, and you fall in love with it, that people are going to see that passion, that they're going to reach out. And you're going to be able to help them. And the more service we talked about the marketplace, the more service I could provide them at a high level, they're going to want to do business with me. And so that was something that I learned. And so that's what I do with my business now, is that I can't be all things to all people, but what I love and I'm good at, if I just focus on bringing that value in other people's lives, they're going to notice it and other people are going to notice it. And eventually, like it's happening now, more and more people are reaching out, taking advantage of what I can hopefully help make a difference in their life with.
How did you actually make your first real money?
It was in the financial services industry. It was, that's basically, I got involved in the industry in 1990 when I got out of university. And in the first 3 years, struggled learning. I got very good at the technical aspect of it, thinking that would make me rich. It didn't. It wasn't until I started focusing on scaling my business, and there was a variety of different ways, and getting focused, getting out of my own head, stopped working in my business, started working on it. Because once I was in my head and I was just focusing on what I could get out of it, I would just kept falling flat in my face. I get frustrated. But once I stepped back and said, okay, I'm going to look at my business from the top down and start focusing, working on it instead of within it. How would I scale this business? How could I build clientele? How could I build my own office? How could I bring reps into that business? It was when I started focusing on the business and how I could serve the people that came a part of it and serve my clients. It was then that the business took off for me. I had to get outside of my own head. I had to get outside of my business. I had to start looking at it from a more objective point of view.
How many businesses did you try?
You know what? I've tried a bunch of these things where people will come along with me and say, hey, you got to look at this thing. It's an MLM or stuff like that. And I never knock this stuff because every one of them have people who are doing incredibly well. So I would check these things out and maybe I would join for about a month or so, go to the meetings, meet some people, and I'd say, no, this isn't in alignment with who I want to be, but I'm not knocking the business. It's just, I can't give it 100% because I just don't feel it. So I would say probably 5 or 10 other things on top of what I've done. But I've had 6 or 7 real businesses. Right now, 4 or 5 of them are actively continuing to operate. Because I was told early on, my father-in-law mentioned it to me, that you need MSIs, multiple sources of income. You just don't rely on one. Have multiple ones so if one dries up, you still can compensate from other ones. So I have a variety of different businesses ongoing all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you believe in having one business, make it to unicorn, or having 10 different businesses making the same amount of money as one?
Yeah, I think how it would be is that you can't, let me just say this, you can't build them all at the same time because then you become a jack of all trades or master of nothing. So when you do create a business and it's sustainable and maybe it can start operating on its own with a little bit of management and maybe you have another interest, then that could become your core business at that point there. You can't do them all at once, but you can, I think it's important to have different types of things coming in. For example, when I started in 2020, the New Millennial Success Academy, basically what it was me doing some speaking about my son, Thomas, and I created an online course, which it's evolved a few times since that point there. That's all that business was. And so I focused on having a platform, scaling that, selling my courses online. And so that is what did that. When that started scaling, because it became automated with that, I started looking at other things in the area of corporate training. And then, Fanshawe College and I developed a relationship in the area of me coming in and doing some teaching as a part-time professor. So it was once I got something established and working that I would do this. And then in the last 12 to 18 months, we've wanted to create something called Growth Day London. I wouldn't have been able to put the time and effort into it like I'm doing right now 4 or 5 years ago because I was too busy trying to get those other things going. So as your business and your life evolves and you get some sustainability with each one of those businesses, I found that the businesses that you will create will be an extension of your overall mission anyways. And that's exactly what Growth Day London is an extension of the objective that I had when I started the New Millennial Success Academy to begin with.
Everything you have built traces back to your son, Thomas.
Yeah.
He's deaf and autistic.
Yes.
Achieving something the world told him was impossible.
Yes.
Tell us the story.
Okay, I'll give you the Coles Notes version because, but I'm very passionate about this. I will tell you, this happened even before 2020, the COVID and that, but he's our oldest. He's now 33 years old. We have 2 younger sons and our youngest is a daughter. So I have 4 kids. But my oldest son, Thomas, is profoundly deaf and autistic. Academically, he operates at a grade 1-2 level. And he was born a twin, 27 weeks. He was 2 pounds, 5 ounces. Unfortunately, his brother wasn't strong enough to continue his journey. So Thomas, we brought him home from the hospital. He was a twin. And my wife and I, we always wanted to have a family and stuff when we got married and wanted to have a big family. And, when we were able to bring him home after 10 weeks, our life started. We said, okay, we're finally got a family at least. And we found out 8 months in, he was profoundly deaf, and 18 months in that he was autistic. So as a dad, I'm going, how do I deal with this, right?
Yeah.
But it was all because of my wife's, she's just an incredible lady. She took charge of this, and so we wanted to normalize ourselves. We had 3 more kids and that. But an incredible thing happened is that when he was around 17, 18 years old, he started telling my wife and I wanted to get a driver's license and buy a car. And we knew, all the experts said this wasn't possible, right? You just can't because of the deafness. Deaf people do drive, of course, but because of the autism and the academic restrictions and all that kind of stuff, it probably would be impossible to do that. And so this is what he kept pushing for. And then he saw our other son, his younger brother, get a driver's license. And he kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And he kept telling my wife and I want to get a driver's license. I want to buy a car. I want to do all these things. And we went to the experts, all these people, and they all said, no, it wouldn't be possible, wouldn't be possible, wouldn't be possible. So we kept pushing off. And he was resilient. And he just kept coming back to my wife and I. And then finally my wife said, let's go ahead and do it. And the government can say no to him. We don't. Up to this point, we pretty much never labeled him, and we let him know that he was incredible and all that stuff, right? But we felt kind of like we'd failed him at this point here because this is something he wouldn't be able to do. Long story short, in 3.5 years, we were able to put together a program, find the incredible people that 3.5 years later, he became a fully licensed driver, had saved up enough money, bought his own car, fully insured, and he was out there on the road. And, I go into in detail about this, but what I did is just right around COVID at this point here, when there was a lot of sort of anxiety in the world, a lot of people were uncertainty, right? I wrote a short story about this whole experience and what happened during that time and how Thomas did it and the steps he took in that. And I took it to a buddy of mine who is a retired school teacher, and I said, I'm a terrible writer. Well, can you cross the T's, dot the I's? And I'm just going to keep this together so that, say, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, his younger brother or sisters maybe would want to read this to kind of truly appreciate what their brother did. Well, my buddy looked at this and said, this is awesome. This is almost like TED Talk stuff. And I said, I'm a terrible writer. He goes, you are, but the story's cool. Yeah. So with the encouragement of him and other people, and I was thinking about the New Millennial Success at this point here, I put it together as a PDF. I bought an online platform and I put it out there for $4.99. And within 2 weeks, this thing was going viral. It was being sold and read around the world. People were reaching out to me to do interviews because we're in lockdown at this point.
Yes.
So the podcasts and people were at home and stuff like that. And people were reaching out to me saying, hey, we saw this story about your son. We'd like to do a podcast kind of like we're doing now. So I'm doing all these podcasts and stuff like that. And I'm talking about Thomas. They think it's fantastic. The story's now been translated into different languages. It's been sold in over 26 different countries now.
Wow.
But after about 6 or 7 months, and I'm creating the New Millennial Success Academy at that point, I get a call from or a connection from a radio station in the UK, in London. And they said, hey, we heard about your story. I wonder if we could do an interview with you, a live interview at lunch. I said, sure, I can do that. And they said, it's noon here, so it's going to be 7 o'clock for you in Canada. I said, that's fine. It's next week. Tell us the questions you want us to ask. We'll tell you what we're going to ask, and we'll go from there. So I called, and I said, perfect. And I called in there about a half hour before the interview over there. The producer said, here's how it's going to work. It's only going to be 7 minutes. You're used to podcasts, which are a half hour, 45 minutes. So we're going to hit it hard right away. And he said, just to let you know, we've done a little promotion on this as well, too. That Thomas Hall, deaf autistic kid, did something incredible from London, Ontario, Canada, not London, UK. So I do this interview. Afterward, the producer said to me, he goes, how do you think it went? I said, oh, it was good. I've been doing long things. He goes, I want to let you know, we've been pumping this story up a little bit. We can track live listeners online and on the radio, and we had over 750,000 live listeners. I was glad he told me that after it than before, right?
Yeah.
What that said to me, though, at that time, I had this epiphany. I said, you know what? His story resonates. So I made a commitment at that point there in 2020 or 21 that I was going to spend the rest of my life taking his story, sharing it, and helping other people make their goals and dreams come true. So that was the whole inspiration behind this, and that's what's happened ever since then. And so here's the crazy thing about it, though. When I analyzed what he did to become successful, it didn't meet my same definition of success. Because I thought you had to be outgoing, somewhat reasonably intelligent, gregarious, athletic, whatever it was, because that's what I thought I had done. But his definition didn't meet mine. So I spent about 4 or 5 months literally analyzing what he did, what I've done before in the past, and what my mentors have done. And I came up with basically 8 key fundamentals of success that I saw. The other stuff was important, but it was kind of the peripheral stuff. But there was 8 key similarities between what he did and what I had done and other successful people had done. So that's what I included in the short story. So I allow people to read a little bit about what my son done. But he's an incredible inspiration.
Majority of people would keep this story private.
Yes.
You turned it into a book being read around the world.
Yeah.
People listening you around the world.
Right.
What made you decide to share something that's too personal?
You know, it's funny, when Thomas was born and I said he was a twin and we lost his brother, it was probably the most devastating day in my life when that happened. And we don't know what our future holds, but I'll be honest, I was totally dismayed that day. And I said, like, why is this happening to me? Why, my friends are having kids and I can't even figure out how to have kids right.
Yes.
It was a demoralizing time, and it wasn't just one day, it was like months and years.
Yes.
And like I said, if it wasn't for my incredible wife, Lisa, I don't know what would have happened. She kept us grounded and, but I look back now and when this was happening, I'm thinking now because of my faith, now I know why I got Thomas. It was that story that changed my life. 30 years later, or 23 years later. It's that story that's changing other people's. I didn't see this 2-pound, 5-ounce baby in this incubator in the NICU at St. Joe's Hospital fighting for his life for 10 weeks, thinking what impact he would have. But when I look back now and say, I got him on purpose. That his story, I well up right now thinking about that I can look back now at that moment and be so grateful that it happened, sad still. But understanding that moment in my life would change my entire course 25, 30 years down the road, and now it'd be changing people's lives all over the world. Not me, because I'm just the messenger. But my son's story has given people hope. My son's story is changing how other people live their life. Now I can look back and say, now I get it. And I started seeing that when he accomplished that, I started going, there's a reason why I had that boy brought into my life. And when we shared that story and we started getting that impact, so that's why I took it public, not for any notoriety or gain, but to let anybody know that if you have a burning desire in your life, no matter who you are, whatever your circumstances, whatever your situation is, you can be, do, and have whatever you want if you really want it.
When things like this happen in one person's life, not necessarily there is another person who can help you get through. And at some point of time, you think that everything is going against me. Yeah. And you trapped into that miserable situation where you think it may end your life.
Right.
What do you do in those situations? Or how do you come up with a solution? Or how do you come up with a mindset that can help you get out of the situation, still thinking, at least in at least that lead you in a better position down the road?
I think in retrospect, I can give a really good answer. While you're in the midst of it,
yes,
it's really hard to have a perspective.
I have been into those situations and I have made some terrible decisions that I would never make if I'm not in that position.
Yep. I think we all have found ourselves in that situation. One of the things that I was blessed with, and I've said it a couple times already, I have an incredible wife who's the strongest person I've ever met in my life. I had her, but I had an incredible network of support of people around me. Now, this whole situation that I went through, I still, as you can tell right now, I'm very emotional about it. It wasn't a 1 or 2 week type of thing. This was a few years of me dealing with these issues and the insecurities and the dad thinking, you know, how am I going to teach my kid to, you know, all this kind of stuff. So this stuff is good. What it really helped me is I had a network of support around me. Did I have the wherewithal or even the mind to think, okay, Jerry, this is just a temporary thing. You're going to get through this. No, not at the time, because by nature, we're emotional human beings. I was caught up in the grief of this. I was caught up in the stress and the anxiety. My wife is no longer working. She has to stay home with our son because he had special needs. I'm 100% self-employed. I'm not making any money. I can't pay the bills. So you can't look at me and say, but just be positive. That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So I had to work through that, but it was like, it's that expression, necessity is the mother of invention. That I had to, out of necessity, either pack it all in or out of necessity, get very inventive. I had to look at my resources and say, I didn't have few. So I had to become a lot more resourceful with what I did have. So it wasn't an easy process. It was years to deal with the emotional side of it, the financial damage that was done during that time. You know, the emotional damage, the relationship damages, you know, the people not wanting to reach out because they didn't know what to say to you because you lost a baby and 1-6. So it's easy for them to, this feeling of isolation and alienation that me and my wife are experiencing, except for a few key people in my life. So that stuff, if I were to look back in retrospect, I know how I would deal with it now, but I don't know because I'm not in that pod anymore. But it's so important at that point that if you know somebody who's going through that moment, try to be there for them. And even right now, if everything's good for you, make sure you're always working in this key circle of people that you're with, so that when these moments happen, and they probably will to whatever degree, I don't know, but when they do, you have this network of support around you. So even if things are great for you right now, make sure you always have that key group around you. I have a key 4 or 5 people around me right now, all the time, that if I needed them at 3 o'clock in the morning, they'd be there. That is so important. You know, and I'm not just talking your buddy down the road or whatever. I mean, key people that you know you can count on and they can count on you. So that's a hard thing to get through. And I wish there was a simple answer for it. It's not. You almost have to be proactive and have a system in place so that when it does happen. So I tell people that all the time right now, that if you're young, you know your circle, have those people around you, because you're going to experience some challenges that you otherwise wouldn't. But these challenges, if you work them properly, will be the best things that could happen to you.
I'm having different jars right now with the label of my close people. Labeled on those jars, and this is the theory of Brené Brown. Marble jar theory. So that's something I'm implementing. Some experimenting.
My wife's a big fan of her.
Oh yeah. Loves her. Yes. So that's something I'm implementing, trying to do on my own. But yeah, let's see. And I couldn't agree more with what you said. Having that key people around you is so important. And when I look back in my own life, I still remember I had those people that helped me at least not the things go the worst level it could go.
Right.
Yeah, I cannot be thankful and grateful to those people. Anyways, what is the single biggest thing Thomas' journey taught you about what people are actually capable of?
I think a lot of people, we think that there's a few people in this world who are destined for greatness. We see a few of them, right? You'll look at someone like an Oprah or Elon Musk, or it doesn't matter what you feel about them, but they've done these extraordinary things, like Messi or Michael Jordan or that. We think that there's a few of these people are just destined for greatness, and the rest of us can still have our share. The one thing I learned with Thomas is that all of us can be, do, and have whatever we want in our life if we have that burning desire. Because for him, his limited ability to think and rationalize and that is considerably different than ours. But what he did have is he had this singleness of purpose of what he wanted to accomplish. And he was willing to do it, the monotony over and over and over again. So the one thing that he taught me above everything else, and this is why I'm so grateful that the good Lord gave him to me and my wife, is that he taught me that all these things that we think will make us successful, yeah, they're important to a degree, but the core to it is that if you have this burning desire and the singleness of purpose of what you want in your life, that things will come into existence, people will magically appear, things will happen for you. If you're authentic and you're not trying to hurt other people, things will materialize and come into your life in a way that you think is magic. Now, there's reasons why that happens, but that's what he taught me, that if you really want it, and what it did for me with all the things that I'm doing now, a couple of things I've done the last couple of years, people said, don't do it. People have tried it before, better than you, they can't do it, and all this kind of stuff. So now when somebody tells me I can't do something, all you did was motivate me to do it. But what really was the wonderful thing that what Thomas taught me was that he took away my excuses. That if I can dream something and want to do something, I can't not do it now because look what he did. And I truly believe that it would have been easier for me to scale Mount Everest, and I hate heights, and I don't like the cold, and I grew up in Northern Ontario. I think it would be easier for me to scale and train and scale Mount Rushmore, or Mount Everest, than it was for what he did. Yet he did it. And so he's taken away any excuse I have. And quite honestly, he's taken away the excuse of so many other people for not wanting to do it, thinking that they don't have this or they can't do that, or this person said this to me. He took it all away.
That's really important.
Yeah.
One of the 7 factors of the highly effective people, highly effective habits.
Yes.
Perfect. It's working in your favor.
I appreciate that.
Growth mindset gets thrown around as a buzzword.
Yes.
But on Tuesday morning, when things are going wrong, for an example, how do you actually practice and develop it in real life? Really
now, and I'm not lying about this. This is true. This is something I had to learn based on all the experiences. I ignore my emotions. I don't know if people can do this. Not my emotions with respect to my love and passion for my kids and my wife and the people who are around me. But I have spent years ignoring or doing my best to ignore the negative feelings I've had in my life, where I'll say things to myself or if something didn't work out, instead of me saying, oh man, I shouldn't have done this, or oh man, this is going to screw me over. How am I going to get through this? I literally can ignore that now, or I've done ignore it to a great degree, where I can look at things now, not use my perception of why it happened, but have perspective saying, okay, this happened. It's not fatal. What do I have to do to fix this? And can I fix it? And is it worth fixing at this point here? Maybe it was, and I literally can do this. I'm not kidding. I've had the ability to do this, and it's really funny. It's like, you have a GPS and, you have them on your phone or your car. You're driving down the road and say it says turn left and you accidentally can't turn left and you go straight. The GPS does not say, you moron, you were supposed to turn left there right now. You screwed up big time. You're not going to get where you are right now. You might as well go home, have a pit. No, you know what it says? Recalibrating, correction, take the next left.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
This is what I've had to learn in my mind. And a lot of people still will criticize themselves when they make a mistake. So if something happens, and here's what happens 90% of the time, the things that are going to come up anyways, you might not even have control over that. So I literally tell people, I said, look, when something bad happens or somebody throws a wrench in it or somebody calls and cancels, Like when you're self-employed and you set somebody up in the financial program and then they cancel it and you already spent that money mentally, that sucks. So you have to say, okay, I'm not happy about this. What do I have to do to make up for it? As opposed to saying, I'm ticked, man. I'm going to have a coffee and I'm going to sit in my car in 4 hours and, be depressed about this thing. I did all those things. I'd wear out the windshield on my car, trying to, driving around, trying to find something to do or just trying to waste time. So for me, it's really important to really put in perspective what happens and get honest with your feelings, acknowledge them, say, but it's not even me anyways. It's just some noise that's crapping in. And so that's something, and I help people work with that. Believe me, I help people with that all the time and understand where that thought came from and how you need to dismiss that stuff and get back focused onto what you want to become and who you want to become.
I read something in one of the book that I was reading a couple months back. A girl was trying to learn how to ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
A toddler probably. And there was one scenario where there were parents, and there was another scenario where there was almost nobody around her. She tried riding bicycle in both the scenarios. Parents said that, hey, it's not your age. You should wait a couple years to get yourself able to ride that bicycle. And in the other scenario, there was no one around. She fell a few times, but she was able to ride that bicycle.
Yeah.
So the environment around yourself or somebody telling you, she was able to do it because there was no one around her was telling her that you can't do it.
Right.
That's another aspect of it. Growth mindset. Walk us through those 0 to 100 mindset experience and what are the exact steps or pillars someone goes through. What changes and what in order?
Yeah. Well, in this, the reason, here's why I have this course. When it was like in my late 30s, early 40s, when I was going through this transition in my life thinking, look, I really finally want to become that person I always envisioned myself to be, but I really wasn't. I had a good career, had a wonderful family, beautiful wife, incredible kids, lived in a nice part of the city. I had all the things from the outside looking in, but I wanted to really become that guy Jerry Hall wanted to become, but I didn't even know what that meant. So I went on this pilgrimage in my life and I said, I'm going to really figure out who it is I am and what I want to become and the skills I need. So I was taking courses. I'd read a book and this was good. I'd take a course. That really wasn't good. And there was so much different stuff I was doing, but I was always trying to get better. I was a work in progress. And I said to myself, I said, look, if I ever figure this out, how to get to where I feel good about myself, if I ever figure it out, I'm going to put together a course so that other people who are just like me, and I found out there's millions of us.
Yes.
They could do that and wouldn't have to worry about all the crap that go through that I did. I wanted to actually almost take them from decades to days, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So when I got to that point and started figuring this stuff out, I was keeping track of it and I had the books and the courses and all this stuff here. So when 2020 came around, to me, it was a blessing because it gave me a chance to retool myself. And so I said, look, I'm going to take all this stuff and I'm going to put it together a course. Now, it might not work for everybody, but if you're like me, a little dissatisfied, didn't turn out the way you wanted to be, but you still wanted to figure it out, I said, I was going to take the steps I took. You know what? None of this theory stuff, none of this raw motivational stuff that you hear, but you've never applied in your own life. I was only going to take the things that I have applied in my own life that I saw positive change with. And so that's what I created. It has had a bunch of different names. The latest version is the 0 to 100 mindset experience. I want to take people from 0 to 100 as soon as possible. And so what it does, it basically focuses on the beginning of it, of the things I had to put in context in my life right away about how I needed to think. So I give people context. And then we talk about why we believe what we believe today. Where do these beliefs come from? And then we take a belief inventory. Basically, what do you believe about these certain areas in your life? So that we can identify the things that maybe are limiting beliefs that are holding you back. So this gives us the awareness. And then we spend some time talking about the conscious and the subconscious mind, because most people don't understand the role of either. We've heard of them, But most people don't understand the role between the conscious and the subconscious, how they interact with each other, which one's more powerful, and how to manipulate them so we can bring them in alignment. Because until your conscious and subconscious mind are in alignment with one another, there's always going to be a conflict taking place. So it's to bring these two into alignment. So we spend some time on that. The whole book, the whole course is littered with worksheets so that we can take ourselves from step, and I have it in a step that you need to learn this before you do this, and need to do this. And then once we understand the brain, and we understand the limiting beliefs that are holding us back, I give people strategies how to weaken those limiting beliefs and how to create more empowering ones. And then the second part of the course is we deal with the 3 most important things that hold people back. Number 1, their self-image. Number 2, their poor habits. And number 3, procrastination. So we address each one of those specifically and how they all are connected to one another. And I found this is that when people understand who they are and who they want to become, and they're specific, and they understand that procrastination is not a cause, it's an effect of some other underlying issue. And if you can identify that underlying issue, you can completely weaken it.
Sure.
Because the reason why you put things off is not because you're lazy, not because you're a bad person, that you have character flaws. You put things off because you're afraid of some underlying issue coming back and making you feel bad about yourself. This fear that we have. And limiting beliefs are nothing more than something that's founded in some fear. And 9 times out of 10, that fear is completely manufactured in our minds, and it doesn't exist. Like, people will tell me, I'm afraid what other people think. Think of them. Here's the thing. You will stop worrying about what other people think about you when you realize how little they actually are.
Yes.
Because today, I guarantee it, your friends and these people you've grown up with, even siblings, how much have you really thought about them today? Very little. You've been thinking about you, right? And the things you got to do. They're not thinking about you. So don't worry about them saying anything about you. So that's what we do at the course. And then I wrap it all up at the end and give people daily layouts, schedules of things so that they can continue working on the goals and dreams that they want in their life. So that's what the course is all about. And it's all stuff that worked for me. I didn't take anything, copy and paste it out of a book or anything. These are the strategies that work for me. You don't have to use them all, but they will actually make a difference. And I tell people this, you will not change yourself 100% overnight, but you will start seeing changes immediately in your life.
Absolutely. You mentioned about 3 things: self-image, poor habits, and procrastination.
Yes.
What are those top 3 poor habits that you keep seeing in majority of the people, and that needs to be fixed in order to get that high performance or the mindset?
I would say, well, it's all tied in together. Our identity is the most important thing, and we have to get that on the roll. Our habits are nothing more than a reframing issue. And procrastination, we have to understand that the reason why you aren't doing what you're doing right now is that there's a fear that we have. And I don't know if this will make sense to you, but here's what I found the secret. Here's what life really is. It's this delicate dance that goes on between what we want and our greatest fear. We start getting close to what we want, and then fear sets in of the unknown, and it pulls us back down. So we have to reduce the fear in our life that's stopping these roadblocks. And it could be a variety of different things. It could be, I don't want to speak in front of a crowd because when I was in grade 6 in public communications, I was standing up and my fly was down and everybody laughed at me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so it's this thing here. So it all stems with who we see ourselves as. And our self-image is tied completely to our habits. And our habits are completely tied to our procrastination. So I deal with all these things. And hopefully at the end of the 0 to 100 mindset experience, people understand that, okay, this is where I am right now. I now have that awareness, but it's not permanent. I wasn't hardwired this way. How I was born does not determine how I can end up. Starting from this day forward, the next chapter in my life's a blank sheet, and I can write how I want it. So it's all tied together. So if somebody says, why do we procrastinate? It all stems back to this image we have of ourselves and some deep-seated fear based on a belief. A belief that doesn't even exist. So we got to deal with those first.
I cannot completely comprehend what you said about what you want versus the fear thing, but I can certainly think about something that my dad was used to used to tell me while he was just starting his own business.
Yeah.
But I can relate few things, not entirely. And probably I may not have gone through those pathways yet.
Well, it's kind of like this. Say, for example, your dream is on top of this hill over there. And at the bottom of the hill, there's a forest. You love what you see, but the closer you get to that thing, because it's so valuable and it requires so much work, the unknown going through this forest, it gets dark and you hear growls and all that stuff. So your greatest fears can pull you back from doing that, right?
Yes.
And this is what I found. So the sooner we confront those fears and understand them and weaken them, the closer we're going to. Now, do we ever get to that pinnacle? No, because I think as soon as you get to a certain level of success, this plateau, a whole new world opens up to us and goes, oh, I got to here, but look how much better it can be. This is what I want to do now. So that's the wonderful thing about being a human being. If we do this thing right, we will never reach that goal. It will just expand our vision more to think, I can even do more. You know?
Well, I'm glad that we are talking. You're being here on the podcast.
I appreciate that.
Your academy teaches things that were never taught in school.
Yeah.
I wish they were, but what's the most important lesson you teach that you wish you had learned in your 20s?
There's a couple different ones, but I'll say the first one is this. This is just a little side, but you can't worry about what other people think, you know, and we learned that through experience. But it sounds counterintuitive to business, but I believe this wholeheartedly, and it's enriched in scripture and everything. But if you spend your life trying to impact and help other people get what they want, everything you could ever want in your life will come back to you in a level of abundance that you never thought possible. This is what I wish. It's hard to believe for people, right? Because if they're struggling in life, they're thinking, just give her yourself. Because you're thinking, I do, and people keep taking advantage of me. But I not truly believe this. I believe this beyond anything in this world, that if you focus on making other people's dreams come true, yours get taken care of. I've had this happen in my own life. It's absolutely amazing. If you just I know it's hard for people to believe, but it's true. I was meeting with somebody who's in their mid-20s, and they were telling me how anxiety ridden they are. They were telling me how they deal with depression and they're sad all the time and all this kind of stuff. And I said, it's almost epidemic now, right? And we try to pop a pill to take care of it. And believe me, I'm not knocking anything, because there are people who have chemical imbalances, and I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so I would never make light of that. But here's what I said to this person. I said, I'm going to tell you something right now, because I know this person fairly well, or come to know them fairly well. I said, here's the issue you have. You're being selfish, because all you're focusing on is your life, what you don't have, what you're sad about. But if you spent a day, maybe at a food bank, or helping the homeless, or a dog shelter, and I said, I promise you, I will drop you off and I will pick you up. You will not see things the same way after helping somebody else, being of service of somebody. And so they haven't taken me up on that offer yet, but I know exactly. Anytime I'm of service, and same as with you, anytime you're of service to somebody else, you feel more grateful in your life.
Yes. You
become more grateful for the things that you have. Because most people focus on the things they don't have, and very few effort or thought gets to what they already do have. But when you compare yourself to the rest of the world, it's mind-boggling. So the advice that I wish somebody had shared with me, number one is don't worry about what other people think. And number two, focus on how you can bring value into other people's lives. If you do that and you focus on it long enough, things are happening in my life, business-wise and personal life, that I never imagined. And it all started with me just trying to be a solution for somebody else, providing service for somebody else. It's not always easy. Some people, screw you over. Some people say things about you and all that stuff. But I've realized in years, if they're not talking about you, you're not doing anything anyways.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I realize that.
Agree. There are people listening to this podcast right now who are in their 40s or 50s, feel like they have missed the boat.
Yeah.
Or they have passed the majority of their lifespan.
Yeah.
How do you reinvent yourself after 40 without feeling like you're starting from something absolute zero?
It's funny because I missed that boat, I thought, in my life as well too, right? We have this, we put all our eggs into the theory that it's all in our youth. It's not. I found out it. I will say, I do one-on-one coaching. I don't do it a lot. It's easier for me to deal with groups. But I have spent, the majority of people who reach out with me are usually late 40s, 50s, 60s. I had people in their 70s. And one of the things I will tell them, I'll say, look, you're not starting over from scratch. You're starting over from experience. All those things that you've learned before in your life, that you don't have to go through that stuff. You can now use that to accelerate the process. And I heard a powerful quote, and I don't want to ruin her name, so I won't say it out loud. But her quote was this: "We are most qualified to help the person we used to be." Meaning that we can make a difference now going forward based on our experiences, our failures, our falling flat in our face. You don't learn anything hardly from winning. You learn from losing.
Losing, yes.
And so I tell people this: you are just at that prime moment in your life. 2020, I was 55 years old. And I'm thinking, okay, Jerry, what are you going to do? Your best years are behind you. Not realizing that these experiences and things that I've had happen in my life, these can be utilized to help so many other people who want to do or want to change the quality of their life. And so I felt it was almost a moral obligation that I can't retire. I have to take what I've learned to help other people get to that point, and like I say all the time, help them become the person they always dreamed of becoming. And so that's what I tell folks, is that it's only over when they slap your face with a shovel, meaning they put you in the ground. Up to that point, especially in today's world with the technology that we have, I was able to, in 3 to 5 years, do what took me 15 to 25 years in the past with our instant access to information. Technology at our fingertips, the ability to scale, our ability to create online authority using social medias and stuff. I started with a roll of quarters and knowing where all the phone booths were in the city of London. That's how I communicated with people. I didn't have a fax machine. I didn't have a computer, no cell phone, and I was still able to build a business. What somebody can do now, so all you've done so far is you've gone through all the growing pains. If you're in your 40s and 50s. Now it's going to be infinitely easier for you because you've already built the foundation.
A lot of people carry imposter syndrome into their 40s and 50s. The feeling that they don't deserve what they have built, or what they have gone through within the lifespan. Or they are just one step from being exposed. How do you break that pattern? The good.
What's funny about imposter syndrome, and it's kind of a buzzword now too, right? You hear a lot about it. The thing that's funny about imposter syndrome, it's usually more evident in high achievers. And what I've learned with imposter syndrome, because I've experienced that, when if you've ever sat in a crowd and they're giving you accolades and you feel uncomfortable, thinking, oh man, they're going to find me out one day. I'm nothing like they think I am, right? That's how a lot of people, especially high achievers, feel this way. Here's what I found out about, it's a very simple reason why this happens. And it's normal, and you don't want it to go away. And here's what I mean. It's an identity issue. It's a difference between who you are right now and who you want to be. So I'm pretty confident about who I am and what I provide and the value I can give people. But I always have an aspiration of taking myself to another level. So I realize that person that I want to become, and the more I reach towards that person, the more insecure I can feel at times, because there's a conflict between who I need to become to be that person and who I am right now. So there's always this conflict between that. It's perfectly normal. And so I used to think it meant, oh, Jerry, you can't do it because you're doubting yourself, or, who do you think you are? Now I realize that I feel pretty comfortable about who I am right now. But who I aspire to be my next level is far beyond who I am right now. So if I want to think like that person and I want to learn what that person needs to learn, there's going to be a big conflict between who that person is and who I am right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's where this conflict takes place. That's where the imposter syndrome comes in, because I have to now start, it's kind of like this self-efficacy type of thing. I have to start acting like that person before I'm actually that person. So there's almost kind of a inauthenticity, I think, or I'm not being completely genuine because I'm trying or pretending to be somebody else. That's not the case, because we always got to act like the person we want to become. So what I've found in my life, whenever I start feeling that way, that's a good thing, because that means I'm aspiring to become a newer version of who I currently am. I would be concerned if I feel completely comfortable about who I am all the time and I don't have that conflict, because you know what that means? I'm not aspiring to take myself to that next level. So it was a perspective shift of why that happens. And I've spent a lot of times understanding the mind and why we think and do certain things, understanding that. And the more I understand it, the more logical it makes sense why I feel that way. So, and I realize it's perfectly normal. Many, many high achieving people, many successful people, they experience that on an ongoing basis. So instead of trying to eliminate it, start learning more about what you need to do to become that person. Be more concerned if you don't have it, because that means you aren't really doing or aspiring to do better in your life.
How important having a mentor in your life is?
Oh, it's everything. You have to always, you can't get outside of your own life and be objective unless you have somebody helping you do that, because it's so easy to stay inside your head, right? And it's always nice to have a fresh set of eyes on you. Now, some people like to have maybe not a coach, but sort of, I don't know how you'd say it, but they kind of flatter them and say, no, you're awesome, you're great. It's like a cheerleader. They don't do anything for you because they can reinforce bad behaviors. What you do is you need somebody to hold your feet to the fire. You need somebody that's already walked the walk, walked the talk, and they will be completely honest with you and tell you that doing what you're doing right now is not going to get you the results you want. So it's really important to do that. Now, you get real mentors. I've had them. I have some right now that I pay for. You know, you have to do this. But you can also get great mentoring from books. Like, for example, this one here, Dale Carnegie's no longer with us. Napoleon Hill's no longer with us. All the people he writes about in this book are no longer here. So you can still be mentored by these people by reading their strategies, techniques, tools, and maybe get somebody else in your life, you know, to help you stay accountable to that information. But I would never say go it alone. We're supposed to be in community with one another. The thing is, and we found out with my son Thomas, is that you have to do it alone, but you can't. No, how'd the expression go? Is that you can't do it alone, but you'll be alone at times on the journey, so to speak. And you can take that quote out because I screwed it up royally. But that's what I found, is that you can't do this thing alone in life. It's just impossible. You have to surround yourself with good people. But make sure the people you surround you with, they care about you, they have a genuine interest in you, and they have value that can take you to the next level.
On a way to finding a mentor, as you mentioned earlier, that basically the person who have already rode that path.
Yeah.
Let's say a person who doesn't know what their career will look like.
Yeah.
So for an example, if I'm in tech and if I want to be a chief technical officer, CTO of a company, I need to find someone who was who started his journey just like as me, as a software developer, and then became a CTO. I would find that person and have him as a mentor.
You know what you're doing? You're actually you're 42 steps ahead of the game. Find somebody who is maybe in that field who's a little bit better than you are already. And just, you don't have to find the person that can take you from A to Z. Maybe somebody can just take you from A to B. And, you know, and then you find somebody else. This is the problem a lot of people, you don't have to learn it all at once. Maybe you're thinking right now, I want to do this, but I just don't think I have the smarts. Well, maybe you can just find somebody that can help you instill a little bit more confidence in yourself. Your mentor doesn't always have to be the final result. Because again, I found that most people, what they want right now is so fluid and evolved that we usually end up in an area that we never thought, but it's where we should have been in the first place. One of my very first mentors in the financial services industry, incredibly successful. We met on a regular basis. You know what we never talked about once? The financial services industry. He would talk about my thinking. What am I reading? How do I feel about this? What am I willing to sacrifice to get myself to the next level? He owned a company in the financial services industry. We never talked about mutual funds. We never talked about investments or dollar cost averaging or any of this stuff, which I thought we would. We never talked about that because he said that's just widgets. We got to talk about this. What you need to understand here to get yourself to the next level. Because you can see it from the horizon, but you can't live it unless you put yourself in a position where you can actually experience it before it even happens and understanding what's required. So when people get mentors, I would find somebody, look at the initial issue that's holding you back right now and find a tool, a book, somebody that can help you get to that next level. Don't try to get to step 51 when you have to get to step 2. Right. To where you are in your life. So don't put all that pressure on you, because right now, you know, if I wanted to become great in the financial industry, I can't call up Warren Buffett and have him mentor me. But if I want to learn how to save money, maybe there's a financial planner out there that can help me get some few tips on. So maybe I want to save $50 a month and get me into a good growth fund or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So don't put all the onus on you that you have. Just little steps each day, each month, each week. You know, we'll get you a little bit closer. You start making that progress. You'll feel good about what you're doing.
How do you track those metrics?
How do I track them? I'm a feelings guy and I'm a visual guy. You know, some people, if it's a business, it's your profit sheet. You know, how profitable are you? You know, minus your expenses. You know, your revenue minus your expenses. You know, for me, at this stage of my life, if I feel good that I made a contribution that day and my bills are paid and my business is growing, if my sales on my course are up over, and I never go month to month. I never focus on week to week or month to month. It's years at the minimum, because there's things that happen economically that if somebody doesn't buy my course last month, it might not be because my course isn't any good. No, it's basically we have a downturn in the economy. Food prices have gone up, gas has gone up. They don't have those few $100 to buy my course. Do you know what I mean? And so I never make a decision based on months and stuff like that. So I will compare numbers from a year ago. I will look at how people are purchasing products and services online and stuff like that based on my own particular business. So I will do a lot of research. I think with AI and that, you can go into Claude, you can go into ChatGPT, you can go in Perplexity. Those are the 3 that I will use. And I will say, here's my business, here's what I'm doing. What's the best way to evaluate whether or not my business is growing now? Can you give me some metrics to track? As simple as that. That's how I will do it. Me personally, am I feeling good about who I am? Do I have a goal of what I want to do next? You know, with Growth Day London, we have to cut off ticket prices tomorrow, because ticket sales tomorrow, because we've sold out the room. So that was a good metric. We didn't for the first event. Now we have. So this event, through our marketing strategies and that, we were able to sell it out a week and a half before the event, as opposed to last year, we were trying to sell tickets the last week to pack out the room. So yes, so I will, if it's that kind of thing, I can look at specific numbers. Personally, I can look about how I feel about what I'm doing, or with my course, there's analytics I can look at. Or social media, you can look at your analytics on that. How many people saw this post or whatever. And I'll be honest, I'm not an expert in those fields. A lot of that stuff goes over my head. So I'll either have employed people to do that for me, or I have people in my circle that can help me look at that as well too. But yeah, I just don't arbitrarily go through life. I do have to track things, and we all need to track things.
Does where you live, a city like London, Ontario, versus somewhere like New York or Toronto, does that shape your self-image and the ceiling to bar your growth? Or can you build a top 1% mindset, basically living anywhere or even in the woods?
No, it's that's a great question. And remember I said, or we haven't really went into it, but we were talking about your circle of friends around you. I heard the expression once that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I believe exactly the same as with location. So if you live in a vibrant environment, that has a lot to do with your success. Came from Northern Ontario. If you're in a small town of, say, 1,000 people, and most people work in the local factory, and they basically live a week-to-week existence. And basically, their only objective in life is to pay the bills and on Friday night have some money for some beers and stuff like that. If you live in an environment like that, that's going to be your standard. You're going to have a hard time getting more of that because by nature, we want to fit in. So you're going to sort of like acclimate yourself to that environment. I believe that 100%. So if you are in that environment, you can try your hardest to get yourself outside of it, but it's going to be very difficult. So yes, I think it's important to be into those stimulated environments. I like London because there is a, you can look for it anywhere, but there's a certain element in the London environment of people who are highly motivated and very successful. So it is really important to get in that area. If you live in, say, for example, New York City or the UK or Singapore, those financial capitals, yes, you are going to get caught up in that atmosphere, that it's going to be more conducive for you to become successful, that you will feel it and you will fit more, you will acclimate more to that. It all depends on the communities that you find yourself in, even within those cities. So with London, there's certain parts of London that you probably don't want to hang out in, but there's certain groups and people to be part of that it's big enough, 500,000 people, that you can find these people, this environment to get into. So absolutely, that's a great question. Where you live and how you assimilate into that community has just as much to do with success than even the people that are around you, like those 4 or 5 key people that you're around as well.
Your vision is 100,000 members by 2030.
Yes.
What does it actually mean to you personally? And when someone's life changes because of what you have built?
See, that's the greatest gift that I've got from this. And what that 100,000 number, we might exceed it, we might not. But I keep focused on that number. But I will tell you this, is that when somebody has kids, I remember hearing my dad say this. He goes, I don't want anything from Christmas. I just want to see what you kids, your reaction to what you get. And I'm going, that's okay, then give me lots of stuff, right? I will be honest. When at Christmas, of course, my kids buy me gifts and stuff like that, and I'm so appreciative of it. But I have always got more joy in seeing their reaction to what you get them. There's just something miraculous about it. And as a parent, it's so fun to watch. Doing what I'm doing now, when somebody will reach out to me and said, look, I'm doing this now that I never thought I would ever be able to do. And they'll say, thank you so much. And I'll say, no, you did all the heavy lifting. I was just able to actually sort of like help you navigate your course. You did all the work. But when somebody tells me that I've helped them make this radical change in their lives, that they're now becoming that person they always dreamed of becoming, I can't put a price tag on that. I can't say, it has nothing to do with the money or anything that comes along with that. I've seen people now start their own businesses in their 50s. I know this incredible person who's now a award-winning author that I was able to help there. One fella who's amazing from Northern Ontario, his dream was always to become a race car driver. He was a heavy equipment operator. And now he races race cars because he just didn't believe he could, even though he wanted to. And I always tell people this, if you have this burning desire to do something awesome in your life, and again, I have strong belief in God. I don't believe God would be that cruel to give you a dream and a goal and not give you the tools to make it happen. That'd be awful cruel, right? You imagine pumping somebody up and telling them. So I believe that those goals and dreams that you have inside you right now, they're meant for you to live. Because when you're passionate about something, you bring quality and value and belief to other people. So when somebody tells me that I was able to have a small part in what they're doing. I don't take credit for it, but it just makes me know that it's a life well lived because it's not about me anymore. For such a long period of time in my 20s and 30s, I just focused on me and my family and that was fine because I had to. But you know, what was my impact in that going to be long term? And in this world, we need it more than we've ever needed it before. Yes. Or not, you know, in the life that I've lived so far, that we got to be there for one another. So if I can just have a little bit of an influence on people's life, that's everything to me. That's me saying, okay, I don't need to retire. Most people retire from something they don't want to do, right? I get to do something that I love doing, hopefully making an impact in people's lives. And so I don't want to quit doing that.
Awesome. Jerry, after everything, the failures, the rebuilds, your son Thomas' story, the academy, what does a truly successful day look like to you?
That's an awesome question. It's very emotional. I'm choking up right now. For me, is when my wife and I sit down at night and she can put her feet on the couch and we can flip on the TV and watch a crazy series that we're you know, sort of like, what do you call if you do a series over the course of a weekend? I forget what you call that, but you know, that we sit down and we're just happy with one another and the life that we have. And it's not like we're jet setting around the world or anything like that, or you know, we're still in the same home we bought in 1996. We've had the same house for 30 years, you know, so, and we love it. We love the neighborhood. So if I can look in the mirror now and say, I'm happy with that person because I feel they make a contribution. I have incredible children who've done incredible things in their lives so far. They love one another. And, you know, that's what my life, that's what it is. It's just, you know, to me, you know, it's a question that almost caught me off guard because it's so hard to define, right? But it's not, I can't quantify it based on, you know, cars in the driveway or square footage of a home or numbers in a bank account or how many passport stamps I have on my passport. It have to do in the fact that, you know, I can live in my skin and the people around me want to be around me and I want to be around them. I know that might sound cliche and
no, it doesn't.
To me, that to me is, the other stuff's just hard to get. If I can just finish with this, the Rolex watch, the Porsche, the Mercedes-Benz, the 20,000 square foot home, that stuff's just hard to get. Requires a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice. That's stuff that's hard to get. But stuff that's valuable, that's a completely different game. That's the stuff where you sit down at night, lay down at night and say, this is my family. This is my life. This is my impact. You can't buy that for all the money in the world. So that's what it is to me. It's like what I get the value in my life and I get to look forward to. That's what I would consider what success is to me, because some things I have bought. You know what I mean? And when I bought them, they didn't at all end up being or give me what I thought they were going to give me when I got it. They were just hard to acquire. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you very much for listening to the entire podcast. If you gained a single value out of it, please let us know in the comment section and share it with at least one person whom you think might benefit from this. Until then, keep figuring it out and I'll see you in the next one.